Have you ever looked at the price of petrol or your cooking gas cylinder and just wondered, what is actually going on here? Well, it's a story that starts with global politics, believe it or not, and ends right in your kitchen. Today, we're going to unpack that whole complex world of fuel prices right here in India.
No, really, that's not an exaggeration. Every single time you fill up your car or book a new gas cylinder, you are feeling the ripple effects of decisions and events happening thousands of miles away. It's a direct, unbroken line from international headlines straight to your wallet.
All right, so here's how we're going to break this down. We'll start with the latest price changes, then zoom out to look at the global puzzle. After that, we'll dive into the price you actually pay, with all the taxes and subsidies. Then we'll explore the big push for clean fuel, and finally, take a look at where India's energy future is headed. Okay, let's start with something that hit people's wallets right at the start of the year. On January 1st, a very specific group of people saw a pretty big price jump almost overnight. So the year kicked off with a bit of a shock for businesses. We're talking about the 19-kilogram commercial LPG cylinders, the big ones used by restaurants, hotels, and your local tea stall. Their cost jumped. In cities like Delhi and Kolkata, that was an instant increase of over 100 rupees. That hits a small business's bottom line, for sure. But, and this is a really important but, while all this was happening with commercial gas, the prices for the 14-kilogram cylinders we all use at home, they stayed exactly the same. So that was a huge sigh of relief for household budgets, kind of creating a firewall between the impact on businesses and the impact on families. So you might be asking, why do these prices change so much in the first place? Well, to get that, we need to zoom way, way out. We need to go from our local gas agency all the way to the global stage. Because what happens in other countries has a massive direct impact on us here. This one number, right here, tells you almost everything you need to know, 85%. That's how much of the crude oil India needs that we have to import from other countries. That makes our economy incredibly vulnerable to whatever's happening in the global market. And where's all this oil coming from? Well, a huge chunk of it is from places like Russia, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. Regions that can be pretty geopolitically sensitive. So any instability over there sends ripples all the way to the fuel pump in your neighborhood. It's why trying to find different sources is always a top priority for India's energy security. Okay, so global prices are one huge piece of the puzzle. But what happens once that oil actually gets to India? Let's break down the final price you end up paying, because trust me, it's a lot more than just the cost of the fuel itself. Think of the price you pay at the pump like a recipe. You start with the base ingredient, which is the price of the crude oil. But then you have to add in the central government's taxes, then the state government adds its own taxes, and finally, you sprinkle in the dealer's commission. Only then do you get the final price. Let's just take petrol in Delhi, for example. The actual fuel, it's only about 59% of what you pay. A whopping 37% of the cost is just pure tax, split between the central and state governments. And this isn't random. This tax revenue is absolutely critical for funding everything from roads and bridges to schools and healthcare. Now, on the flip side of taxes, you have subsidies. These are the programs the government uses to soften the blow of high prices, especially for people who need it most. You've probably heard of schemes like PAHL, which gives direct cash transfers, or the Ujjwala Yojana, which gives free connections to poor households. In fact, for 2025-26, the government budgeted over 12,000 crore rupees just for these LPG subsidies. So we've got these huge government programs trying to get clean cooking fuel, like LPG, into every single home. But the big question is, are they actually working the way they're supposed to? Let's take a look at what's really happening on the ground. And the reality shows this really stark divide between the cities and the villages. In urban areas, pretty much everyone, about 89%, uses clean LPG. But in rural India, nearly half of all homes are still using firewood. And this isn't just an inconvenience, it's a major health crisis. That indoor air pollution is one of the leading causes of pneumonia in young children. And this right here, this gets to the absolute heart of the problem. Families who get a free connection under the Ujjwala scheme, they refill their cylinders on average just under 4 times a year. Now compare that to other consumers who refill more than 6.5 times. So what does that tell you? It tells you that even if the first cylinder is free, the recurring cost of buying a new one is still a huge barrier for the poorest families. So, with these big challenges of depending on other countries and making sure fuel is affordable, what does the future look like? Let's shift gears and look at the long-term game plan India has for its energy future, one that's cleaner
and more secure.
It all starts with a huge, ambitious goal: net zero emissions by the year 2070. That means we have to get to a point where we remove as much carbon from the atmosphere as we put into it. It's a massive undertaking that basically requires us to completely rewire our entire energy system. So, how in the world do we get there? Well, the strategy pretty much rests on a few key pillars. Three of the biggest are blending ethanol into petrol, pushing the switch to electric vehicles, and investing in what could be the superstar fuel of the future: green hydrogen. First up, ethanol blending. The idea is simple. You mix ethanol, which we can make from things like sugarcane, right into our petrol. But the benefits are massive. It cuts down on how much oil we need to import, which saves money, and it also lowers emissions. Over the last decade alone, this has already saved India something like 85,000 crore rupees. And then there's green hydrogen. This is the really exciting, futuristic stuff. Basically, you use renewable energy, like solar or wind, to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. What you get is a powerful fuel with zero emissions. It's a total game changer, and India's big plan is to become a global hub for producing and exporting it. So, at the end of the day, the price of fuel is this incredibly delicate balancing act. It's a mix of global markets, the government's need for revenue, and the daily needs of over 1 billion people. The way forward seems to be a combination of smart policies, protecting the most vulnerable, and making some big bets on new technology. The real question is, can this complex strategy actually deliver both energy security and a lower cost of living for everyone?